on Radio 1 FM 90. Brought to you by Housing Finance Bank, a financial institution regulated by Bank of Uganda. Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Good evening to you, listener of Radio 1, joining us online and on air. This is Spectrum, coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90 or 98.9 FM in the east and northeastern parts of our country. We're also live on DSTV. Our channel there is 897. We're also live on Star Times. Our channel is 97. We're also live on the different radio listening apps, TuneIn, AfroMobile, Your TV channel, Radio Garden, and Stream Africa. You can also get Radio 1 live on its website, www.radio1fm90.com. Click on the icon with the word Listen Live, and you'll be able to listen to us from wherever you are across this globe, as long as you have an internet connection. My name is Kenneth Lukwago, your host this evening. I'm sitting in for my colleague Gabriel Iguma, who is unable to host this evening. Well, this evening we are looking at the legal and policy framework on usage of contraceptives by young people in Uganda. Now, the debate about the use of contraceptives as a birth control measure and deterrent against unintended pregnancies, especially among teenagers, took center stage as Uganda joined the rest of the global community to commemorate the World Contraceptives Day under the theme, Contraception. It is your life, it's your responsibility. Now, the discussion became even more relevant given the reports about many young girls getting pregnant during the countrywide COVID-19 lockdown, since schools where they were safe remained closed. Use of contraceptives by young people and even adults has been opposed by some sections of the public, especially religious leaders, but proponents of its usage say that this could save a country from a deep crisis. Other stakeholders have also called for responsible usage of contraceptives, saying that young people should abstain from sexual relations and focus on their education. It has been argued that parents must step up their efforts of parenting to bring up morally upright young people who will say no to sex before marriage. Now, given this situation, usage of contraceptives in Uganda has remained low, but unwanted pregnancies continue to rise, with some situations leading to health risks, including deaths. So this evening, we hear from the Minister of Health and officials from the Women Pro Bono Initiative, who have been conducting research and advocacy about this matter across the country. Our guest this evening, Dr. Jessica Nsungwa Sabiti, the Commissioner in charge of Reproductive and Child Health at the Ministry of Health. She's the Commissioner in charge of Reproductive and Child Health Department. She's also the head of that department at the Ministry of Health. Welcome to Spectrum, Dr. Nsungwa.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners.
Thank you very much for joining us. Also on the line is Miss Elizabeth Achola Brenda, Program Officer in the Legal Department at the Women's Pro Bono Initiative. Welcome to Spectrum, Brenda.
Thank you for having me as well.
Well, let me begin with you, Brenda. Your organization has been conducting advocacy and research on the issue of usage of contraceptives, unwanted pregnancies, and the challenges that come with it. Bring us to speed. What have you seen, and what do you think are the legal and policy gaps that you think need to be addressed in order to bring us to speed with other countries as far as usage of contraceptives is concerned?
Well, thank you so much for today. And jumping right into the question is asked, the main issues that we need to address, and from our research and the advocacy work we've been doing. Maybe I'll start by saying that contraception use, like you mentioned, it does amplify women's rights, so reproductive autonomy, and it grants women and girls their right to decide if and when and how and with whom, whether to get pregnant, most of the things that the access to use of contraception would avail to them. And for what the advocacy work we are doing and what we continue to do, we note that the overall unmet need for family planning in Uganda is about 30%, 30.5%, which is way below target of 10% by 2022. This one, I'm reading it from the commitment on family planning so by 2030 that was made by the government. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go right ahead.
Then it also continues to prevent very undesirable fertility rates and maternal mortality ratios of 336 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. This is also presented in our Uganda Demographic and Health Survey 2011 report. So with most of these statistics that we have, different statistics keep coming up from the newspaper, from even our communities, we see that many girls and women, the level of pregnancies are really high. And the challenge is that many of the challenge that we've realized is that most people don't have the information that they can use to prevent some of these challenges that lead to these high mortality rates. And we all know that Uganda, our population, the overall unmet need for family planning in Uganda is really affecting our population levels. And when the population is high, that would mean the services that the population can reach is also going to be lower. And some of the health services in Uganda are already low as it is. So when we don't talk about issues like contraceptives or do services or extend the services to the people, especially those in rural areas, it means that it's really going to impact on this issue, and there was no way that we may be able to control the problem. So for me, for us as the WPI, what we have discovered and what we think needs to be done is that adolescents need to have really great access to quality sexual and reproductive health services. There is need for the government to ensure that adolescents their access to these health services are really made. There should be a clear plan and made budget line that every year that is considered and put in line with the implementation of the adolescent health policies. So investing in at least percentage of the health sector budget into adolescents and young people's access to quality reproductive health services. This includes issues like abortion, contraceptive family planning, and everything that falls under sexual and reproductive health services. If the government could at least ensure that a higher percentage is really covered into these areas, it would really help cover the gap with the heightened pregnancies. And maybe we shall circle back on the issue of parents and educating the children and blaming parents for all these cases of high pregnancies and whatever.
Well, you raised quite a number of issues there, but away from the issue of actually budgets and policy framework, we have also seen that in some situations, there are some people, communities who are entirely opposed to the issue of contraceptives, usage of contraceptives. How do we deal with that kind of situation? What would you like to see? Because they say, look, this is not applicable. We have seen religious leaders coming out. We have seen even some traditional leaders actually coming up. What would you tell them?
Well, there are always going to be challenges, and there are always going to be opposition in certain aspects, certain topics that the communities are not going to be able to boldly and comfortably address. And the issue of contraceptives is one of them. And some years back, we used to have sexuality education in schools, but that was scrapped off. And again, it was because of some of those reasons you're giving, the opposition from the religious leaders and the community leaders. This is a topic that people are not yet comfortable to talk about. So for me, in my opinion, I think investing in age-appropriate information. There's a way we can table the information that we send out, we share with the public. This information we have to look at. Yes, we look at the community, we look at the opposition, we look like taking it step by step. Look at the kind of information we want to put out there. Age-appropriate, scientifically correct information that adolescents and the children can use in relation to contraceptives and all these topics that most people are really opposed to. Because the more we oppose these topics and these concerns, it means that we are really just closing our eyes to the problem. So comprehensive sexual education, when given to adolescents, can actually help them make informed choices and delay sexual debate. So the right information has to really be framed in a way that the opposition is not going to find it like it's a threat, like we are in just encouraging young people to engage in early sex, but the way we frame information is really good. So for me, I think that's one area that we need to, that we, as us, we are working on, and maybe other people listening can also work on to address the issue of the opposition, because the opposition is going to be there, but how do we frame the information we are putting?
Well, our discussion is around policy and the law. At the moment, what is the status of the law on access to contraception by adolescents in this country?
It's a sole obligation of the government of Uganda to provide contraceptives to Ugandans, and the information that they need to make choices for when and how they should have children. When we look at the national objective and directive principles, state policy, these are provided for in our 1995 Constitution of Uganda. These are that are fundamental, right? Article 33 of the Constitution provides for the women's rights in Uganda, and it's that the state shall accord women equal dignity with men, and further that the state shall provide the facilities and opportunities that are necessary to enhance the welfare of women and enable them to realize their full potential and advancement. So, and then Uganda has also signed different treaties with international institutions, like we have signed the CEDAW, that is the Convention on the Rights of Children, the Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. We have ratified the Convention on the Rights, the Maputo Protocol. All these protocols guarantee adolescents' rights to choose any method of contraception. So our government here in Uganda has made very many initiatives for the young people to access contraceptives, by availing different youth-friendly services and on SRHR for free, different health facilities. And some of these policies are derived from like the Constitution and some of the treaties that Uganda has signed, among other treaties.
And when you talk about the unmet need, what exactly do you mean in this regard?
Pardon?
When you talk about the unmet need, what are you hinting on in this regard?
When I say the unmet needs, there I mean the existing gaps that the policies may be not covering. Maybe they can't be covered by the law. Maybe these gaps need to be covered by the communities and the people and us. And those are things that I mean by the unmet need. Things like inadequate information that is put out there. Inadequate information. Now, when I was talking about the laws, the policies that Uganda has in place that are aimed at ensuring that women's rights are promoted, there is Article 22 of the Constitution, which allows for termination of pregnancy. But now, the unmet need in this aspect will come in the fact that article restricts women and girls from accessing certain services in relation to maybe safe abortion. So the unmet need is that the existing laws on women's rights that restrict them from accessing these services need to be maybe removed or regulated in a way that women and girls don't feel like they cannot access certain services and they have no voice to speak out. And other unmet needs like the myths and misconceptions that come with use of contraceptives, and all of these myths and misconceptions come as a result of the inadequate information. Like I said in the beginning, how do we frame the information that we are putting there? We all know that there are so many misconceptions that exist. Recently, I was in and we were training some of the young girls. As much as some of them knew about contraceptive methods, the information they had was construed in a way that it's misleading. Like for them in their belief, they were told that family planning makes them barren. But is that the right information? They know that there's a family planning method. They know about condoms. They know about IUDs. But in their opinion, they are not allowed to use them because they are going to do something society. That is wrong information that is out there. So,
well, let's now go to the Commissioner, Dr. Jessica Nsungwa. Madam Commissioner, the issue of contraceptives in this country, the unmet need, if you might have heard from Elizabeth there is a problem of the unmet need. People need contraceptives, but they cannot get them. There is the issue of budgeting. And there is also the issue of access to information, especially for the young people. As the ministry and the commissioner who is in charge of this particular docket, what are you doing to address some of these problems that she is talking about?
Thank you very much, moderator. Family planning is one of our biggest priorities in the Ministry of Health, and we have been working on a lot on increasing the budget. You're all aware that a couple of years ago, the President in the London Summit actually did commit himself to increase the budget for family planning to 5 billion, and actually about 3 years ago we surpassed this budget. The biggest issue, I think, here in terms of family planning, and especially young people, is the issue of social norms. The issue of the fact that society has views about people using family planning, especially young people. We have issues about parenting, people actually educating children much earlier about their bodies, about the need to prevent pregnancy, and about the need to make sure that they're in a safe place at any one time. We also have issues about, of course, people having myths and beliefs about this family planning method. Some people have beliefs, and we've tried to disseminate information. We are working through some influential people. We have a lot of influential people we try to work with, including the church, including people in the community, local leaders, but also schools. The schools have a sexuality education program, which is trying to prepare these young people that when they get to the stage of using it, when they are up to age, when they are of age, they know what to do and they know what decisions to do. Many family planning methods are actually safe, both for young people and other people. There are few family planning methods which are not eligible for young people, and we have trained people, we have skilled health workers up to the grassroots. For those places where we don't have doctors or midwives, we have also done task shifting, and we're now training community health workers to be able to educate and mobilize the masses. And in some cases, they are also able to provide some family planning methods. We are also pushing for self-care, where actually people in the home can even give themselves injections for family planning. We have family planning methods like Diana Press, and we have self-care programs we're rolling out in the communities, especially during this COVID period when people were not very able to come to the health facilities because of the lockdown. Many people had to resort to the self-care, and we provide these methods, Diana Press especially, for mothers and young people to inject themselves. So we are on course, but we also need to work a lot with people, with the society and the community to be able to increase awareness, but also motivate people to use family planning methods.
And one would ask, for instance, what have you done about what Elizabeth was describing as the negative perception to some of the influential people in this country, for instance, religious leaders and cultural leaders? Have you tried to engage them to address this issue?
We have engaged the religious leaders and cultural leaders in two ways. Our first step and the first approach was working with the Minister of Education, and I want to thank the Minister of Education who spent 2 years engaging the religious leaders, and we were able actually to develop and finally launch a sexuality education framework. That was a big contentious issue because some people thought it was immoral to teach children about their bodies. When you teach a child about their bodies, it doesn't mean that you're teaching them about contraception, about being sexually active. But children need to know that, for example, how babies are made, what can happen when people touch their bodies, and the feelings they can experience because they are growing because of the hormones. And once they know, then they can be empowered to negotiate their way out, but also be able to say no when it can. So that was the first thing we did, because that policy also took us a long time to get on ground. And finally, we were able to launch it a couple of years. On the other hand, we have had this policy of discussing on whether we are in the Ministry of Health actually giving family planning to young people as young as 10 years. The answer is no. And there's been a misunderstanding on that issue. For the young people, we provide information. We provide age-appropriate information. We continue with what is happening in the schools. We build on what is happening in the schools. And then for the older adolescents, we actually start when they're at risk and we assess them and they're eligible, we provide them with family planning. So there was a problem about the age range, and we have been able to correct that one and communicate it. And right now we are actually in advanced stages of finalizing our adolescent health policy, which includes a policy on contraception in young people.
What does that policy, for instance, say about the appropriate age for one to use contraceptives in taking into account the age at which actually young people are becoming sexually active?
In Uganda, we have a very paradoxical situation. Our young people become active very much earlier. And if you look at the trend of contraception use in Uganda, you can see that we have a 2-year delay in use of contraception. And that's a big problem. So although children become sexually active at around the age of 10, 11, we are not pushing for family planning at that age. And rightly so. What we do, we measure on our main major strategy is to give information, to teach these people. We promote family planning when the children have age and 18 years and they can consent, and we think they on their own. When they are much younger, we as I said earlier on, the most important thing is to prevent, and don't prevent when the child is already active. We should start sexually active. We should start giving this information much earlier. And we usually start at around the age of 8 years. But at home in the communities also there are some situations where you can actually keep awareness in the home. And in the old days, this was a very active process by the community, by the parents. But given the social dynamics in our communities now, many parents are not doing that role. And we are relying a lot on the schools. And the school curriculum has that embedded in it. They are teaching these children about skills, life skills. They're teaching them about, of course, the science and the biology of their body. And that is actually supposed to prepare them for this situation. So it's not true, and I want to reassure the public, the misconception that the Ministry of Health is pushing for children as young as 10 years to actually use contraceptives. We don't promote that. We are also parents, and we know that that may not be an appropriate, but we are aware that children are getting pregnant much earlier than when, or they are having sex much earlier than the average age when they start using family planning methods. So we need to narrow that gap and make sure that children are delaying their sexual activity, and we are also involving the men, the boys. I think I want to push for this emphasis. So the men involvement, we are not only focusing on the girls, but we're also focusing on the young boys as well.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nsungwa, there for joining us on the line. I know you're up country and the lines were being tricky on us, but we thank you very much for your contribution during this discussion. We go for a break now. When we return, we'll continue with the discussion, looking at the benefits of actually using contraceptives vis-a-vis the challenges, and then we'll also look at the other gaps that need to be addressed. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We'll continue this discussion after these messages.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
You can't come to the Sheraton? Worry not. Sheraton will come to you. Order your favorite meal for you and your family at your home, office, or special function. We deliver breakfast, lunch, early dinner, snacks, cakes, and pastries. We also cater to weddings, bridal and baby showers, birthdays, anniversaries, and all your special occasions. Stay home and let's bring your meal to your doorstep. Sheraton Kampala is also available on Jumia Food and Glovo. For bookings and inquiries, call 0312-322-499 or 0752-711-191. Email foodandbeverage@sheratonkampala.com.
We know these times have been challenging, but also believe that business shouldn't stop, whether trading inland or across borders. Come with a business with our trade finance services that are designed to make it easy for you. Talk to us today for bank guarantees, import and export financing, certificate and invoice discounting, import loans, commodity financing, contract, LPO financing, and more. Contact our trade finance team on 0704-252-833 or WhatsApp on 0790-542-262. Housing Finance Bank. We make it easy. Housing Finance Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda.
COVID-19 not only changed our way of life, but also helped us rethink how we relate with money. My name is Beatrice Diamanzi. I am a financial coach with the Straightforward Financial Growth Team. I invite you to be part of the Prudential Knowledge Series webinar, where I will be sharing about how to save money for short, mid, and long-term goals on the 29th of September 2021, starting at 10 a.m. Attendance is free. All you need to do is register at www.prudential.ug/save. I look forward to sharing my knowledge with you. See you there.
Prudential Knowledge Series webinar is brought to you by Prudential in conjunction with Radio 1 and Akabozi. Let's face life together. Tuli Nawe, Prudential is regulated by the Insurance Regulatory Authority.
You and your friends deserve a taste of the finest dining Kampala has to offer. Delight in the flavors and aromas of the seas with seafood and sushi night at the Sheraton Kampala Hotel, featuring live music and a complimentary glass of sparkling wine this Thursday, 30th September, for only 150,000 shillings. Make your reservations early. For bookings and inquiries, call 0312-322-499 or 0752-711-191. Email food and beverage at sheratonkampala.com.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back to Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 or 98.9 FM in Mbale and other northeastern parts of our country, live on the different radio listening apps. Tune in Afro Mobile, your TV channel, Radio Garden, and Stream Afrique. You just need to go to your Google stores, and if you have an internet connection and a smartphone, and download any of these apps and look for Radio 1 FM 90. If you're listening if you're in the eastern part of this country, you can find us on 98.9 FM. If you have a Star Times connection, please look for channel 97, and if you're on DSTV, look for channel 897. You can also get us live on our website, www.radio1fm90.com. You click on the icon with the word Listen Live. This evening, we are looking at the legal and policy framework on usage of contraceptives by young people as part of commemorating the World Contraceptives Day under the theme Contraception is Your Life, is Your Responsibility. We've just been speaking to Dr. Jessica Nsungwa, the Commissioner in charge of Reproductive and Child Health Department at the Ministry of Health, that's the Government of Uganda, Ms. Elizabeth Achola Brenda, Program Officer in the Legal Department at the Women's Pro Bono Initiative. And right now we are also joined by Ms. Rahom Maria Bukirwa, a lawyer and communications officer at the same organization. But let me begin with you, Elizabeth. You heard from Dr. Nsungwa there, the duty bearer, explaining what actually they are doing to fix the gaps you raised earlier. Are you satisfied with the contribution the government of Uganda is doing as far as this issue is concerned?
I've listened in. He talks about a lot of work that the government is doing, and we applaud them for that, of course. Especially the aspect of involving male engagement. Yeah, that's very important, and I do agree with her. But for me, the only issue maybe I would have is on still the issue of the age gap, because you see the issue I have with this aspect is that in accessing HIV treatment, 12-year-olds can be allowed to access information and services. So how does this fall in line with the same person in the same age bracket not being able to access sexual reproductive health services, and yet when it comes to getting treatment, they are allowed to get it without even parental consent? So for me, I still argue on the basis that lowering the age of consent for adolescents really ought to be considered, as is the case in other countries, maybe like South Africa. We can always borrow jurisprudence from other countries and see how they are handling this issue of contraceptives. Because yes, I do agree with her also on the other aspect of giving information to the young people. That is very true. But what happens if information is not enough? Like I was giving my issue earlier on in the refugee settlement, the young girls are not able to access family planning, but they say they are sexually active. So the information is there, but shouldn't we take more steps in ensuring that at least they can know that they can access a certain service instead of just having the information. Information is great, trust me. Information is power and all, but knowledge is power rather. So I still think the age gap, and this the age gap needs to be maybe taken into consideration, lowering it a bit. And then this policy of young people, I also can't wait to when it's finally done. I'm also looking forward to seeing what it's all about. But yes, I do commend the government on what it's doing, and yes, I do agree with some of the stuff.
Let me come to you, Bukirwa. There is this argument that usage of contraceptives is actually more relevant now than ever before because of the COVID-19 lockdown. You had Elizabeth there contributing and Dr. Nsungwa actually submitting on that particular issue of access to contraceptives to the young people. Why do you think it's more relevant now than ever before?
Thank you for having me. I think it's relevant because of the setting that we are in now. Given the pandemic, so many things have been put on hold, such as schools, but also the working environment. Women are spending more time with their partners, and also the economic context. You have seen multinational corporations withdrawing from the country because of the economic repression that has come with COVID. So this topic is really relevant because of the benefits that come with the use of contraception. And it's something that we need to discuss and not shy away from. And as earlier pointed out, there's a lot of misinformation littered all over places that even some people who are in places of power and access, so many people are poisoning the minds of others, relaying information that is half-baked or out of context, like the myths that my colleague Elizabeth spoke about, where people think that use of contraceptives is going to make them barren, or they think that once we access contraceptives, it's going to have people into more immorality, but much more the context is not only social, it's also economical. So it's a really relevant discussion at the moment.
Well, you bring up the issue of the benefits, and somebody will do an analysis and say, look, these are the benefits and these are the dangers. Are you able to balance both and actually come out to say, this is the best position we should actually continue with? What are the benefits, for instance, that we are looking at here, so that we can understand the importance of actually pushing it forward?
Okay. When you look at contraceptive use, first of all, let me outline the context that the resistance to this use is not only even in the aspect of adolescents and young people. That conversation has already been streamlined, and also they have spoken to the age, but also we have instances where fully grown women are being hindered from using contraceptives. Because when we speak about this context, we may only think about these Kampala women or uneducated women, but you think about the woman in the village. My colleague Elizabeth spoke about the refugee settlements that we work in, that we were in Chiriandongo just the earlier month, and we were speaking to these people. And so such information is needed for people in the refugee settlements, because the restrictive operational environment also, we need to point out that the restrictive operational environment for the civil society, our work in giving out this information to the individuals. For example, family planning helps prevent unintended pregnancies. When you talk about relevance, in the COVID-19, we have seen so much unwanted pregnancies that is not only teenage pregnancies have been there, and that is also talking about the aspect of rape and defilement, but also contexts where women are not allowed to use contraceptives because men are taking charge of their bodies. Men are deciding how many people, how many children they should have, and this also speaks to the patriarchal setting, the norms, the cultural norms, where women are seen as property and therefore they are seen as childbearing tools. So when you talk about contraceptive use, you talk about reducing the rates of unintended pregnancy, but also reduce the occurrence of unsafe abortion. Because you will see a situation, there's also this myth that unsafe abortion is most common in young girls. But you will see that married women also procure unsafe abortions because they are having pregnancies that are not safe. But if a woman has the right to decide for herself when to have a pregnancy and use contraceptives, there is no need for her to procure unsafe abortion. Then the other benefits is contraceptives such as condom use. They help in preventing HIV or AIDS. This is well known. And also the other benefits of contraceptive use is it reduces infant mortality. For example, if a woman has just given birth, and just before 3 months, she's engaging in sexual intercourse, unprotected sex, she's going to get pregnant again, and then she has not given her body enough time to rest. So this will also increase the high mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, but also infant mortality rate. Then also the other issue is the economic aspect. You have seen situations where people are crying to the government to take care of their children. People are in the streets. They have a family burden that they cannot shoulder because they are giving birth to many children. But when you bring in the aspect of contraceptive use with the available information that is necessary, you can downsize on the family and be able to work within this economic context that has been hit by COVID.
Well, there is something there you raise where you say that a woman should have control of her body. Let's look at a setting where two people are married and somehow they are required to take decisions together. Don't you think there should be a discussion, for instance, amongst couples on how many numbers of children to have and therefore what kind of contraceptives to use, or if they should use it at all?
Yes, when you're talking about the context of couples and the discussion between the couples, yes, the discussion should be a friendly discussion, not an overbearing discussion, because much as we talk, the reality that happens, and you're talking about the patriarchal context of the country that we are in, women do not have a say when it comes to childbearing. Much more, women are seen as tools to continue the family line. They are put on societal pressure. We have even this whole aspect, and it's not actually even only in the villages. We have seen this whole trend of even online in-laws where women are put on pressure to bear children, male children. And so the discussion of sitting down with a partner and a couple, that is the ideal, of course. It is the ideal that you have an argument of how many children you can have, but more so, the upper hand of the decision should be for the woman, because first of all, it is the woman who goes into the labor. It is the woman who has this menstrual cycle. When you talk about postnatal stress, all those issues are all hinged on the woman. So if a partner is going to have a discussion on the number of the children, they should take into consideration the overbearing burden that the woman is going to have because of her maternity. What my colleague Elizabeth talked about under Article 30, where the state is supposed to take into the account the woman's maternal role. That is a unique aspect of a woman which is empowering, but in the context in Uganda, sometimes it is seen as a vulnerability because that maternal role and aspect is not considered when you're talking about health budgets, when you're talking about sexual reproductive health discussions. That maternal role is not considered as an empowering factor. Most of the time, it is used against the very women, and it presents a vulnerability for them.
Thank you very much there for listening to us. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. We now go for the views of the listeners, and they've been sending in their views on our WhatsApp number. Let me begin with this listener. That is Sally. She says, I support sharing information and giving contraceptives to this group because the truth is that they are sexually active. We are in the 21st century. These children have access to internet and social media. It will be better for them to hear from teachers than Google and social network. I hope we wake up and face reality. Well, we have another comment that comes in from Dennis in Kajansi. Says, thank you for the show. I'm learning a lot from it. That's a comment there that comes in from Dennis, who is in Kajansi. We are going to open the phone lines to see if we have some listeners who actually want to call in and share their views on this topic. Good evening, you're live on Spectrum. Good evening, you're live on Spectrum.
Yes, good evening.
Please go right ahead with your comment or question.
This is Kawia calling from Kawempe North. Now, talking about the law, policy, adolescents, and contraceptives. Okay, the issue of appropriate age. Madam Sabit is right. Okay, the law can prescribe a certain age. What about those girls who are discreet? They get the contraceptives and then get issues. Let her, I suggest, do a research so that for those girls. If she wants information, let her go to born-again churches and hear those girls giving testimony. You will hate marriage courses, you will hate reproductive health tools, you will hate those family planning tools. So the other thing is, a woman, being used as a tool for a man to produce. Have you heard that women are happy if they're in a marriage with a man who doesn't beat them, but as long as they are happy and she can go on and produce as many as they want, because that's her role. Leave alone the education, the reproductive health, and so on, those issues, natural. Just had women running away from Calaban. Okay, that's one. I'm done. You had that one.
Thank you very much for your comment, Mr. Kawaya. Let's take on another caller. Good evening, you're live on Spectrum.
Yeah, AM Sedoge the name.
Yes, AM.
The guest. First and foremost, we need advice from the experts as far as that topic is concerned. And one thing what is letting our country down is we people, especially parents, we have double standards. Normally, someone can condemn something, but at the other side, they're using the same thing. So we need the advice, and even the traditional methods, they can also be applied for the betterment of our culture and the society, for God and my country.
Thank you very much for your contribution there, AM Seduge. Let's go back to our panelists to get their responses. Elizabeth, you had some of the issues that have been brought out by the listeners. There are issues of side effects. People are wondering who should take accountability for the side effects that come with the different types of contraceptives used by women.
The first caller who talked about churches and the born again, I believe is the one who was talking about the side effects.
Yes, he actually says people testify there saying they face a lot of problems.
Talk about born again, like girls going to churches and then they hear about side effects of contraceptives, so that is something they need to stay away from. Was that what you're going to say? Anyway, regardless, for me, my opinion is that the issue of contraceptives, there are different kinds of contraceptives and our bodies are different. And there are different ages as well that different contraceptives are supposed to be used at whatever level. So as for who needs to be held accountable for what for the side effects, I don't think there is a particular person needs to be held accountable. Because at the end of the day, you can't know what side effects a person is going to get until the person actually gets it. Look at the side effects of using condoms. Condoms are not 100% safe, but there are still chances of it. There are chances of them that 1% that they are unsafe. So who is to be held accountable? Is it the man? Is it the woman? I think no one has the answer. Like the second person actually said that people have double standards. On this hand, people are advocating for the contraceptives. On the other hand, they are saying no. Even the opposition people themselves, and most of them they do use these contraceptive methods and they do talk about it. But then on the other hand, because society puts the standard on them to oppose certain things that I'm putting it in quotes that they are not supposed to be talked about. So they just oppose, as a matter of opposing. But for me, I really believe that talking about issues like this gives really people that other side of information that they wouldn't have got, even in schools, even in their homes. And I don't think the issue of churches, what this person is saying, is really, really legit, because people give different testimonies and different issues when they talk about their contraceptive stories. So for me, that is my feedback on those two persons. As for the advice of experts, anyone is free to seek for the advice of experts. But at the end of the day, the choice is in your hand. You're supposed to seek for that knowledge, do research, and see what you think about a certain topic. That you need to really educate yourself. Don't wait for someone else to educate you.
Well, Bukirwa, you heard from the listeners there. What are your responses to some of the issues they raised? And probably you also share with us the way forward as we come towards the end of this discussion.
Thank you very much. Some of the responses are, first of all, let us inform ourselves, let us be informed. One of the biggest barriers to realizing proper sexual reproductive health is the issue of misinformation. So let us get the proper information. Everyone has their views, this person, that this person, and you cannot even trace the line. So let us have proper information, but also let us view advocacy as something that is not left to civil society, but let us be seen as partners in this. The cultural leaders, the religious leaders, but also the government. The government is, first of all, the primary duty bearer, but also it is supposed to be seen as partners. The restrictive operational environment that civil society is operating, we are seen as competitors, but we are actually partners in making sure that the health rights of women and other people are realized. So one of the way forward is to have the legal environment that civil society operates in to be more friendly. The news earlier was talking about restriction on donor funding. That is one of the things. Advocating for rights needs finances and a lot of finances. So that is one of the issues that the government needs to streamline, but also relocating finances to disseminate this information. When they talk about an adolescent policy that has been in the pipeline, it was 2017 when the guidelines were withdrawn. So up to now, those adolescent policies have not yet been in place. But when we are debating something to do with finances, the way it moves through the pipeline is a bit too quick. So priorities. So the government needs to prioritize the health of its citizens and also hasten the decision-making when it comes to people's lives. While these 3 years, they are still under the debate of adolescent policy guidelines. Adolescents are dying, teenagers are being defiled. There's so much going on. Lives are lost each day, but this is something that's being held up by bureaucracy, and then there's selective hastening of processes when it comes to other issues concerning other things. Then the other that we can talk about is access to information. The minister talked about self-care. One of the tools for self-care is internet access, but there's this restrictive policy on the internet that needs to be worked upon to enable that the internet, of course, it's full of bad, but there's also aspects of it that can be used to better the health of the citizens.
Well, thank you very much, ladies, for this discussion. That's what we had for this evening. Spectrum will be back tomorrow, but up next is the news in English. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. English, 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 stay tuned to Radio 1